Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Eat the Fucking Food. Remember when we started, I said I wasn't going to always have like coaches or doctors or quote unquote experts on. I was occasionally going to talk to real women who have lived an experience on what it's like to live in their bodies in the most healthy, powerful way. Well, that is exactly who we have for you today. Her name is Allison O'Brien. She is a content creator, but also founder of the website Living Simply and Well. And in the past couple of years, she has lost more than 100 pounds by doing the simple things well. It has taken time. She talks about how discipline creates peace for her, how she had to dismantle her crazy business, her incredibly successful business, in order to find peace in her life and eventually peace in her health process. She talks about how she shows up for herself on low energy days and how the bare minimum is often the best thing we can choose. She was a delight to chat with, and I cannot wait for you to meet her. Let's get to the interview with Allison O'Brien. Allison O'Brien, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Kristin. I am so excited to chat.
I was so excited when we connected and I started learning more about you. I love this whole thing you have going, your website and everything. I'm living simply and well and becoming her. Can you tell all of us how becoming her movement for you started?
Yeah, so just a little bit about myself. I'm Allison. I am a content creator full time. I'm a podcast host as well, and a mom and a wife. Most of my wellness work that I talk about actually came from years of trying to do everything perfectly and still feeling like my body wasn't cooperating. For a really long time, I lived in that common cycle of under eating, over optimizing, chasing the next routine or strategy that was like supposed to fix everything. I was doing all of the wellness culture things that everybody tells you to do, but underneath it, I was anxious, I was exhausted, and honestly, pretty disconnected from what my body actually needed. So, over the past few years, my approach has shifted a lot. I started focusing less on restriction or outcomes and more on like how could I support my nervous system, making sure I was eating enough, building rituals that actually make me feel well, and learning to trust my body again, which is something that I realized I had really struggled with. Part of that journey has included, tools like a GLP-1, which has really opened up a lot of conversations for me personally about metabolism, fiber, nourishment, and like what that actually means to support your body instead of like constantly fighting against it. Now, I talk very openly about that messy middle of wellness, the mindset shifts, the habits, and the emotional side of food and health, especially for women who are juggling motherhood and careers and a lot of pressure to really get everything right and do it all. My philosophy now is a lot simpler. I've really just focused on supporting my body, feeding it well, and building routines that help me feel good in my life and not just look good on paper. And I think that's something that a lot of us, whether we are scrolling and comparing ourselves or we are finding ourselves just constantly overthinking or overanalyzing our next steps, I think it's something that we all need to kind of work on is how we can reflect on what's going on deep inside ourselves and have more awareness of how we're feeling.
I could not agree with you more. I know I went through that mindset click, that transition of my insides don't match my outsides. I'm feeling under duress quite a bit. The quote unquote healthy things I was doing were not making me feel healthy, like you said. And it's once you kind of once you kind of make that shift, really good things could happen. Can you tell me what was the first thing that you had to change, that you had to adjust when you started looking at things as a process more than outcome oriented?
So I spent a really good period of time getting a lot of opinions. So I would seek help from a naturopathic doctor or a nutritionist or a hormone coach or a fitness, like a personal trainer. I felt like if I got advice from all of the professionals, that I would be able to be on the right track. I just needed to perfect every area of my life, whether that be what I'm eating, how I'm moving, if I'm in therapy, whatever the case may be. I realized that what I wasn't paying attention to was how I felt. I realized that I could see anything on a piece of paper, my blood work, the newest gut health protocol because I complained I was bloated. I could look at anything in black and white. But if I wasn't honoring the season of life I was in, the amount of stress I was under, or the way that I felt overall, none of what I was doing was going to work. And that hit me really hard when I ended up plateauing after losing 100 pounds. I was doing all of the same things that I was doing when I lost the 100 pounds in a year, but I spent the following year and a half completely plateaued. I would literally play around with this 7 to 10 pounds and go back and forth and lose and gain and right. And I was in this vicious cycle and I couldn't understand why it was working a year ago, but it wasn't working now. And it wasn't until I reflected on where I was in my life and didn't understand how my circumstances had changed. I had, grown I had a 6-figure digital agency that I was running. And quite frankly, it was burning me out. And I realized that I wasn't taking proper care of my nervous system. And I ended up, to make a long story short, I had a falling out with a pretty close family member and went no contact for a few months before working on myself to figure out why that happened. Right. And so I started therapy. I started doing a lot of inner work. And listen, I am as type A Enneagram 1 as they come. I am a perfectionist at my core. Right.
Oh
And
my
so
God. Yes.
I'm telling you, solidarity, sister, because it is not easy. We constantly overthink everything. We always need to make a plan for everything. When I tell you, I lived and breathed by my color coded Google Calendar. If it wasn't in there, it wasn't happening. And I did not allow for any white space at all. It wasn't
Mm.
until I started therapy, I was diagnosed with high functioning anxiety, and I realized that I needed to breathe. I needed to give myself more space, literally and figuratively. I needed to give myself and schedule, even if the scheduling part, right, lit me up because it still does. I still like to tick a good
Mhm.
box, okay? But I literally put my walks, my meals, my husband will laugh and tell you, yeah, she puts her bathroom breaks in there too. But like, I literally schedule things for myself in addition to my work. In September last year, I closed that 6-figure agency. I took a couple of months off over the holidays. It was a scary time. I went from,
Yeah.
a 6-figure income to zero because I made that intentional decision that I was worth more than the money I was making. And as somebody who used to really tie their productivity and their success to the amount of money they made or the amount of clients they made happy, it was a bit of culture shock for me. But what didn't
So I was like, my heart is racing as
oh,
you're saying this because don't have the 6-figure income, but I understand that
mhm,
your worth is tied to productivity. And
yes,
I think so many women feel that same way to the
yeah,
point I've been taking Sundays totally off, like
yeah,
no client calls,
yep,
no work, no social, like we're not doing anything.
yeah.
And I have the hardest time.
I'm telling you, it wasn't until I started sharing my story very openly that I came across so many women who were in the same camp, who felt like they were just not successful unless they were constantly doing more, right? Without realizing that I now view productivity and success so differently. And Kristen, can I tell you, this was only 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I closed my agency. I came into, at the top of this new year, such a different way of viewing my own life. I have now rebuilt an income as a content
Mhm.
creator, as a podcast host. And can I tell you that we don't have a house cleaner? We don't get meal delivery service anymore. And if you really put it into perspective and think, wow, I was so busy that I couldn't cook dinner or keep up with cleaning our home. So I paid probably the equivalent of a few $100s a month for services
Mhm.
that in the season of life I was in, it was necessary. But I now get to view part of my productivity as making our bread from scratch or putting a crock pot meal in on a busy day because I have formulated my day to now allow for me to also include the work that I do in our home as part of my level of success and opening up my mind to that being a way that I could also find achievement was huge. And I think a lot of women think they either need to be either or, a homemaker or climb the corporate ladder. And I want you to know that's not the case. You
Mhm.
can have it all. You have to choose yourself in the process and prioritize your needs and really reflect on what you want. If you want to be a corporate baddie, go ahead and do that, right? If you want to outsource help around your home because it brings you joy to go to work every day, right?
Mhm.
That's great. But if you want to stay home, then get intentional about your spending or figure out where you can make ends meet or, do what you need to do to have a side hustle if that's something that you want. I loved when I had my agency, what I loved about it was the creativity. I worked exclusively with women in the wellness space and
Mhm.
I helped them bring their brands to life. And so I said, why am I not just doing that for myself? Why am I not
Mm.
building a wellness brand for myself that could earn me an income through beautiful partnerships with products I'm already using or creating, high converting content that I actually enjoy making? And I sat down and just did it. And listen, do I have a six-figure income yet? No, not from that. But what I do have is peace. I have peace and I have
Yeah.
the ability to show up every day doing something that I love. And I am profiting from my passions, not from burnout.
There's two things I want to go back to. One, just really touching on how you said you have to figure out what's right for you, because that's something I even talk about in the nutrition space. There is no one way to do this. We're all individuals, and something that works for one person doesn't work for another. And there's no wrong answers when it comes to how you become her, how you work as a woman. I love that you spoke to that because we still see online, we see everywhere, like it's bad if you work, it's bad if you stay home, it's bad if you do both, and it's not. None of it's bad if it works, if it brings you peace, if it's right for you, if it's right for your family. That's all that matters. I want to go back where you were saying, I know you were talking, goes back to the scheduling of everything and maybe being you were overscheduled, but you do make time now for your self-care, which for me is, like you said, making meals, eating. And I love your workout videos that you take the time. I saw you with your daughter, I believe is when we kind of first connected. How important is prioritizing those things now in your life?
I actually, ironically, just started a little series on Instagram where I am creating space in my mornings. And so right now I am waking about 6:30 a.m. My goal is really intentional. I do not want to be a 5 a.m. girly, even though I think that they're fantastic. It's not aligned with my life. But I am trying to back it up to 6 a.m. And what I'm doing is I'm doing it intentionally and incrementally. And so I'm spending the next few weeks until true spring. So I'm like basking in it with my walks in the neighborhood, but like I'm also very aware that the next couple of weeks are going to be a little tedious until we get to it. But anyway, I am working myself backwards to get to 6 a.m. because one thing that's important to me is my strength training that I do every day. And I would like to fit that in before school drop off. Right now, my mornings look like waking up at 6:30, getting some quiet time. I actually have these candles. They're called a 20-minute candle, just a regular beeswax candle. And I love them because as somebody who has a time block in her brain, even though she tries to shut it off a little bit. These are the perfect little solution because it's still like very soft and ritualistic, but it's also technically timing you. And so it's a 20-minute candle. I light it and I do my Bible journaling. I'm currently reading Brianna Weiss's 101 Essays That'll Change the Way You Think. Absolutely highly recommend. And they're great because they're little bite-sized essays. So I usually do two or three of them a day. I do my Bible journaling and then I'll usually brain dump a bit, either in the mornings or the evenings. And so I take my time to do that. Then I take my time getting ready for the day, skincare, a little bit of makeup and do my hair, get dressed. And then my goal is to, at this point in time, when I get to the 6 a.m., fit in my strength training because then I start to tend to my home. So I pour into myself, then I pour into my home, and then my daughter wakes up and I pour into my family. And so this little three-step situation that I've created here allows me to make sure that I am approaching every single day in a very balanced way. Because again, I do like to check boxes. And so emptying the dishwasher, wiping down, the kitchen and packing my daughter's lunch and backpack and making sure she's ready for the day makes me feel like I've achieved something in the morning. And so putting those in my morning was important to me. But I was coming home after school drop off and wanting to also get right into work for the day because it was just a habit. I make a coffee, I sit down at my desk, and I see what the day is about to bring, right? But I was having to do my strength training. And so when I realized the spring season could bring in a little bit more warmth and allow me a little bit more, because let's face it, winter is dark and waking up earlier is just not easy. And I believe in leaning into the seasons. I believe in a little bit more rest in the winter. And I call it, I literally hibernate. But like, I do believe that that was the time that I should sleep a little bit more, right? And I've gotten myself from the true depths of winter, waking at 7 a.m. now to 6:30. And now I'm on a journey to get to 6 a.m. because that 30-minute window will allow me to carve out that time for my strength training in the morning as well. Another thing I like to do is break up my work days with a walk. I'll usually put on my weighted vest, my little belt bag, and I'll usually put my headphones on and take a podcast with me and listen to that for the first half. And then I like to just be silent for the second half. Usually the route that I take around our neighborhood takes me 28 to 30 minutes about. And it really just breaks up my day in a way that I'm getting fresh air. I'm getting some steps in, some movement. And honestly, a lot of times I'm getting inspired by the podcast or just by the thoughts in my head that I am, having while I'm able to give myself some silence.
I love that you talk about taking that walk because I'm a huge proponent of strength training. Obviously,
Mhm.
I think every woman, regardless of their age, we're not even going to say the over 40, should lean into that. I wish I could go back and tell my 25-year-old self, yeah, your running is great, but maybe hit the gym a couple of days. It would have
Mhm.
made 45 on a bit easier for me.
Yeah,
But people overlook the power of walking.
big
And
time.
it's even just not only for, say, that, your cardiovascular health and that
Mhm.
it gives you movement, but for the mental health benefits it brings. I agree with you. It can't be beat. And like the times I do go without a podcast or an
Yeah,
audiobook are great. Cause like you
yeah.
said, you get in, so much happens on that walk
You know
other
what's
than
funny?
just,
People
yeah.
talk about shower notes, how they have a
Mm,
waterproof pad in the shower. I get so
yep.
many walk ideas, right? That I'm
Yep.
constantly like typing things in my notes in my phone and stuff because it's just when you allow yourself the space to create, it will
Hmm.
come to you. So giving yourself that time on that walk and that connection to almost nothing allows your brain that openness to start to create. And
Yeah.
that's really where I get, like I said, the most inspired.
Something else I saw you talk about online that was great was I do it anyways. Because,
Mhm.
like we were just talked about seasons, winter
Mhm.
is rough. What do you mean when you say I do it anyways?
It's not always easy to wake up and check
No.
the boxes and to put yourself first. You are
Yeah.
going to have days. I went through my high anxiety days. I call this my bare minimum day, right?
Yeah.
Where I will have a few things in the day that are a requirement for me, even if I'm having a low energy or a high anxiety day.
Hmm.
And that is that I will drink my water, that I will at least take a walk, even if it's just on the walking pad watching a show on Netflix. It doesn't have to be the picture of wellness that you see online. It just has to be a moment for you. And I will nourish my body. These three things are key for me: nourishment, movement, and mindset. They are the only way that I will get myself out of a potential fog if I'm in one. And trust me, I have had days, maybe a week at a time, where I just can't seem to get it to click and I can't seem to find my rhythm. But doing the bare minimum allows me to not spiral and allows me to feel like I'm still putting myself first, even when I don't feel my best. And that's been key for me, is stepping into that power, knowing that I have created a bare minimum menu, you know what I mean, for these days that allow me to gain that momentum and find myself back on the path that I truly belong.
I love that. And let's be honest, there's times we need to take the rest. There's times where bare minimum is the absolute healthiest choice you can make. I had a day like that yesterday. My plan was, to wake up, to get up at 6, did not happen. But like to, eat, to do my workout. I'm an avid tennis player. I have a lesson at 9 o'clock. And I know that if I don't do the workout before the 9 o'clock, which is hard for me, it's not going to happen after. But I woke up and felt so draggy that I was like, I could force myself to do it. But it was actually, I'm like, you know what I'm going to do instead? Because, I'm getting older. I'm not recovering as fast. I need to honor, like we're talking about the season I am in right now. And it was better for me to like, we're going to skip the workout. We're going to go for a walk. We're going to make sure I get just general movement. I ate well, I drank. And I got to say, today, I feel 100 times better than I think if I had pushed through. So I love the little thing you choose to do on those days.
Well, here's the thing too. I might average 7 to 8,000 steps in the winter, but I might average 13 to 15,000 in the spring, summer, and fall. It's all a season. When you look at it as a season and you think of it, and that doesn't just mean season like the weather, but I mean the season of life you're in. You might find yourself, if you're a mom and you have kids that are into sports, right? You might find yourself on the sidelines and at the playground and on play dates and at birthday parties and summer outings constantly in those months. But in the winter, you might find that naturally your family slows down. Do you know how many board games and, lamp lit dance parties that we had at home? There are so many ways that the winter can still be beautiful, even if you're slowing down. And it's when you realize that everything is a season of life, a season of time. It's when you start to lean into almost the romance of, I can be her in many different ways.
Yes, and it's all good. And I love what you said, like once you realize that there are different seasons, it helps us stay in the moment and stop looking to chase something that maybe occurred for you 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Which relieves probably that anxiety and all that like every season brings gifts with it. And we have to start looking for those gifts almost in a way rather than fighting against them. So you've touched on that you've lost quite a bit of weight, that you 100-pound weight loss.
Yep.
I think now I believe you said something on a recent post, 136 pounds.
Yep.
And there was a phrase that I saw on one of these posts that it's something I've said. It's something that I think every woman should be saying to themselves. I deserve to take up space. Can you tell me a little bit about that and why you're saying that, how you came to that?
Yeah. So I have actually lost 100 pounds twice. I lost it, I
Okay.
gained it back, I lost it again. And now, since, changing the way that I approach wellness about, I guess, 7 months ago, I made the intentional decision to start a GLP-1 and
Okay.
to allow my metabolism. I have PCOS, hypothyroidism, and insulin resistance. I have what I call the trifecta of metabolism
Mm-hmm.
sludge, right? So I needed the tool of the GLP-1 to get me past my goal because I was plateauing not once, but twice in this exact same spot. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm now down at 140 pounds, and I absolutely credit that to not just the GLP-1, but also the mindset shift that came from the last 6 months of my life as well, because it was all kind of accumulative, right? So it was when I started really being intentional about my mindset work and my nervous system support, when I realized that getting out of that stress state and getting into the mindset of somebody that deserves to be in the same room as the people that are, already fit. I never looked at myself as somebody that would put up, a video in a workout set, with my extra arm, the lunch ladies that my that
Be
my
nice. Be nice. I've
nephew
seen your
calls them.
videos and you are not lifting teeny weeny weights,
No, I
lady.
know.
You
Well, and
are
that's
fit,
yes, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's funny because I never saw myself as taking up the space in a gym or even in my home gym, like taking up the literal space online as somebody that would share that they were doing this type of workout and lifting heavy and walking 14, 15,000 steps a day. I don't look like the poster child for an activewear brand, but you know what? I am, right? And so this is where I have started to come to terms with, well, I can do it too. And I deserve to do it too. And that came from the mentality of prioritizing myself, putting myself first. You know what, Kristen? I am her. I am the girl who, is technically has a proper BMI, right? I operate every single day as the woman I want to be. I step into the knowledge that I am already her. And that's how I am able to maintain my routines and build these rhythms and have this life that I have honestly carefully designed for myself. I am a better mom, a better wife, a better friend, daughter, because I am showing up for myself first. And that's why I know that the relationships I have are as strong as they are. The business that I am building is going to be as solid as it is because I have created a business around the life that I want for myself, not the other way around. And I've put myself in rooms that I belong in.
Oh my, without a shadow of a, I, I've known you for the last, let me look, 25 minutes, and, and I can tell that. I mean, it's palpable even through, through this little podcast interview. I absolutely love that. And I love that, you're sharing you're on a GLP-1, which I think is such a valuable tool for
Yeah.
women. And I also love that you are talking about how it's just one part of your toolkit. Because I know of some women, I don't work with them, that they're just using that. But
Mhm.
you're pairing it. I love that you've already talked about, your mindset shifts
Mhm.
was just as a big change. You're lifting those weights, which is so valuable. Your nourishment, and that's such a good, I mean, it's such valuable information that needs to get out there,
Yeah.
especially with so much advertising coming at all of us
Yeah.
constantly about this medication, which is powerful
Mhm.
and necessary when used safely and correctly, which sounds like you're absolutely doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it took me over a year to about a year and a half, I guess, to decide to actually use a tool like a GLP-1. I think there has been so much shame around the conversation of starting a GLP-1. It's a shortcut. It's this, it's that. I began using this as a tool, knowing that it would help my metabolic health. So on paper, right, there is obviously, Western medicine and then there's functional medicine. I have consulted with both. On a Western medicine standpoint, I was normal. I did not have to medicate for my TSH. My thyroid was completely normal. But from a functional medicine standpoint, it could be lower, right? And so I was getting mixed information. And it wasn't until it was approached in a way that I could use this as a metabolic tool. Do I think everybody should be on a GLP-1? No. I think there are women out there who are using it for vanity purposes, who just want to lose weight. I have the actual metabolic profile of somebody that needs a tool to help their metabolism catch up with their goals. And so I began using it, but I use it very intentionally. I am focusing on protein and fiber and drinking my water, and I'm still supplementing, with like creatine and vitamin D and the B vitamins and being really intentional about my movement. And I am doing this because I don't want to be on it forever. I want to expand our family. I have a lot of goals, and I'm using it as a temporary tool to meet my end goal, which I don't even have a number in mind, right? I just want to be healthy. I am healthy right now. My blood work, my doctor who literally sat me down and was like, honestly, the only thing that's elevated right now is your BMI, my cholesterol numbers, my thyroid, my insulin, everything looks great. On paper, I am as healthy as a horse, you know? But it's a matter of perspective. And it wasn't until I got on the GLP-1 and realized that if I'm going to use a tool, right, like this, if I'm going to give myself a needle every single week, I want it to be worth it. And it was when I made those intentional changes and I shifted my perspective to say, this is it for me. This is where my journey becomes all encompassing, that my wellness is woven into my daily routine, not just a side quest to get me where I want to be. It's actually who I am now. My ability to move and eat and drink and supplement and do all of these things is now just part of my daily life. It's the way that I operate. And because of that, I'm successful. I'm losing weight. I am going to meet my goals because I am acting as if I've already done so.
You just touched on something that I think is so important, where you say, it's now part of my daily life.
Mhm.
It's a forever choice,
Yeah.
which I think for me was also a game changer, that
Mhm.
once I started kind of getting into nutrition and understanding, one, I became like crazy, about, not crazy in like, I have to be so precise and I only eat this and
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But just, oh my goodness, it's such a foundation of self care. And I wish I knew how good I could feel well fed and well
Mhm.
nourished and
Yeah.
eating up to my needs. I wish I knew that a million years ago, but I'll take that I know it now. And that I also just, when I flip the switch that yes, and this will be for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though we don't feel like it some days, because let's be honest, being healthy can get boring. You know what I mean? Because
And
it's a
think about it
day in,
this way
day out.
too.
Yeah.
If this is going to be for the rest of your life, you can miss one day if you're not feeling up to it. This
It's
is where,
freeing.
right? It's where you
Yeah.
take the mindset of, I want to work out 3 times a week to the extreme of, I didn't work out 3 times this week, right? I failed this week. Well, if you're doing it for the rest of your life, I think you can miss one workout this week. And that's when you start to change the way you approach the way that you live, because you're living in a way where the wellness is woven into your days. It's part of your daily rituals. And I promise you, when you start to change your mindset to making yourself a priority and putting yourself first and scheduling that time for yourself, whether you have to wake up earlier or even stay up a little bit later to, have quiet time or do something that lights you up. I promise you, when you start to be intentional about putting yourself first, you are going to want to nourish your body. You're going to want to move. You're going to want to feel like your best self.
Allison, I'm just going to leave it there because I can't, I would just be repeating the brilliant thing you just said, and we don't need to do that. You summed it up perfectly. I end every podcast on this question since it is a nutrition question. And I do think food is something not only to benefit our bodies, but that brings us joy and to be enjoyed in community. What is your favorite thing to eat? Your favorite meal, your favorite, whatever.
Okay, on repeat, my lunch that I meal prep each week. It is kind of borderline ridiculous at this point how much I eat it, but I prep couscous in bone broth. So you get the extra protein because it soaks up rather than water. It's a little fun hack. And I actually take a log of goat cheese and I mix it in. Talk about mac and cheese vibes in the best way. I mix the log of goat cheese while it's hot, right after it's done cooking, right into there. And then I roast Campari tomatoes. They are my absolute favorite tomatoes to roast. And then I cook sweet Italian chicken sausage. I specifically like the one from Trader Joe's. And I make that bowl every single day. I can prep everything in advance, and quite literally every day it takes me 5 minutes to assemble the bowl and reheat it. And I am nourished for, I think it's about 32 grams of protein. And I think about 8 grams of fiber.
And absolutely delicious too. I can tell my mouth just started watering.
Literally, you have to try it. It is my favorite.
And as soon as we're done, I'm going to be like couscous, bone broth.
I'm telling you, it's so good.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. You were absolutely wonderful. Where can people find you out in the world?
Yes.
If they're looking for you. And I highly recommend find Allison. Follow
Thank you so much, Kristin. It was such a pleasure to be here. So I share a lot about intentional living, motherhood, and building a life and business, like we talked about, that actually supports your well-being instead of competing with it. You can find me on Instagram at Mama Finally, where I share that lifestyle content and collaborate with brands. And I also host a podcast called Living Simple and Well, where I have honest conversations about motherhood, business, boundaries, and really redefining success in a way that feels aligned. Kristin will actually be hopefully joining us on there too.
I would love to. I want to talk to you for another hour.
Forever. It's going to be great. I've also created a 28-page guide called Becoming Her, which is designed for the women who are either avoiding maybe a pivot or have already been through one, and they want to step fully into their best self because you deserve it. It's filled with reflections, exercises, and guidance to help women gain clarity, take intentional action, and build a life that truly feels aligned with who they are. So you can grab that if you follow me on Instagram. It is linked in my bio. This season of my life looks very different from the one I was in even just a few short months ago. But in many ways, it also feels like I am more myself than ever. And that's exactly what I hope every woman who reads Becoming Her can feel, like the freedom and courage to create a life that actually works for you.
Oh my God, that's great. I'm going to go download it. I'm writing that one down too. Thank you so much. And hopefully I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, we so will. Thanks, Kristin.
All right.